Dr. Vanessa Anseloni.
So this is kind of good afternoon, we guess. We are in between. And first of all, I would like to say how grateful we are for being here. Grateful that the Spiritist Federation of Florida invited us to share these beautiful moments and for welcoming us, meaning myself, my husband Carlos, and our baby Virginia. And this is so special because we can tell we have a family, the Spiritist family. There is no better feeling than this. And for this and much more, we are grateful for this nourishment that we are having here together with you. As we celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is so much to talk about it. And amongst the many features we could talk about is how research nowadays is tapping into this new land, religion, how science is approaching religion. But why does science really care about religion? Does science really cares about religion? Why is that important? When I talk to my students, either dentists, future dentists, or future medical students, I often remind them that they are not there in the healthcare field for money. And they are surprised when I say that. And I mention, you shouldn't be here for money. But Dr. Anseloni, this is the nature of business, not healthcare. We're talking about ethics. And that's precisely the theme of this conference, to live an ethical life. So I've got to know of a continuing education course that was proposed when a dentist was going to tell students how to raise a multi-millionaire business in dentistry. I was shocked. Because we're talking about how to make money with the health of somebody else. Are these two things compatible? Does it mean we're not going to get any money? Where is ethics in that regard? So we are living in an era where people are really confused. And the message that was psychographed by Raul Teixeira and was beautifully presented in the video by the Spiritist Federation of Florida states precisely what's happening nowadays. We're so confused that we lost touch about what is ethical, not to say what is moral, though some people don't like those words. Ethics, okay, but morality, oh please, that's something related to religion. But thanks, in a paradoxical way, thanks to the advancements of sciences, we are now able of challenging its own paradigms. How so? Because the machines that are available nowadays can scan our brains and tell us what's happening in our minds. We cannot hide any longer who we are. Little by little, we will be stepping into this world that Hollywood already portrays in some way and form, in which we will predict the next movement of criminals. We will. There is recent science showing to us that by scanning the brains of criminals, we can actually tell by the activation of some areas whether or not they are more likely to perform another crime. Can you believe it? And little by little, science is being called to challenge itself. Where are you in regard to the ethics and the morality of life? The bottom line is actually to tell us the truth that many scientists are religious people. And this is just a flash about some scientists that are quite famous, like, for example, Francis Collins. Francis Collins, who is the director of the National Institutes of Health, he's actually the one who decides the direction of what's going to happen next in science in the United States and consequently in the world, because the tendencies in science begin here. They are religious people. They are not conflicted about being a scientist and a religious person. This is maybe new to the modern world, but in the old world, it was very common. Copernicus, Galileo, they were religious as well. For them, there was no such thing like science versus religion. But we know there was a time in which science got divorced from religion, and religion divorced from science too. We don't know which one is more stubborn and headstrong. But we know one thing. They are talking again. They are making amends, and it's likely they're going to get married again. Forever and ever. And there's no death, so we cannot say, till death do us part. But they will get married again very soon. They're still like, they're dating on and off. On and off, they are dating. And hopefully people around are like asking them, shouldn't you guys get back together? Come on, you have so many children around the world you have to take care of. And these are some of the scientists that are actually thinking in that direction. Thinking that probably it's just a matter of changing the way we view science and the way we view religion. But of course, Spiritism comes as a good counselor and says, you know, you guys don't need to worry about that difference, because Spiritism, at the vanguard of humanity, has come to bring peace and hope to all of us, including to science and religion. There is no reason for dissension any longer. First and foremost, because Spiritism is a science of observation too. Is it? Yes, it is. These are Kardec's words in the book Genesis, chapter 1, item 4. He says, Spiritism, much like science, is science, but it's a science of observation. And he extends the rationale, and on item 16, he states something that is unforgettable and remarkable. Unforgettable and remarkable. He says, Spiritism and science complete each other. Science without Spiritism is completely unable to explain certain phenomena solely by means of the laws of matter. Spiritism without science would lack support and control. Is he talking about Spiritism as a religion, but he just said Spiritism is a science of observation? We know Spiritism has three features: philosophy, science, and religion. It's not one by itself alone. It brings the perspective of life in its fullness, in its whole. And as such, it changes our lives. And Kardec goes a little further when In the Gospel according to Spiritism, he talks about the alliance between science and religion. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, in a book that we would think it's a religious book, he introduces the ideas, amongst many other things, by talking about the alliance of science and religion. What a mind! That was a book published 150 years ago, when science and religion could not be in the same room. They would really fight. They could not. And Kardec was ahead, and still is. And still is, because if we try to do the same today at the University of Maryland, try to bring such a discussion in the classroom, or any university, to the curriculum, it's becoming invitational little by little, but not in the mainstream curriculum in any university. Little by little, we have some lessons of spirituality coming across here and there, but it's not mainstream yet. And it won't for a while, because it's going to require a lot of efforts from both ends. Not only scientific end, but the religious people as well. And we are going to understand more little by little how it's going to happen. One thing is for sure, we have good news, because we know the gospel is all about good news. We have lots of good news. Some of them we're going to share here. The good news that science, knowing that people are afflicted, they have to reach out to people, because the instruments we have are not enough. Pharmacology, the pills, the medicine is not enough either. If you have a headache, you can take Advil. But if you have a heartache, what do you take? Tylenol? I don't know. Is there any pill? When you're stressed out? Anybody can go to doctors nowadays and they are going to say, this is stress. Go to Miami and relax. And then you're saying, yeah, great, 1 week in Miami. Then you go back, stress is there waiting for you at home. Maybe sleeping on your bed, waiting for you to go to sleep and saying, you're not going to sleep tonight. Right? What do? There is no pill. What do we do? So science is really questioning what is there in the mind of human beings that can really change the scenario. And why do people think so much of God? That question is actually one of the main questions that science has been asking. Why do people think about God everywhere and elsewhere? No matter the different cultures, people think about God and talk about God, though in different languages, with different names. Allah, Jehovah. But why? Is it in the brain, the genes? How does it happen? Well, these are some of the questions that science is asking. If we recap the concept of religion, we're going to say that science is coming closer and closer to understanding more our religiousness. Let's recap the concept of religion. Religion, in its definition, is about our relationship with God. We know our connection with God. But when we talk about the connection we have with God, it's not only about God and us, but it also pertains to the reasoning of how this God in us also make us change and feel about our relationships. So when we talk about religion, we're talking about our relationship with God, and we're talking about our relationship with everyone else who is also a creature of God, by principle. And amongst everyone else, there is the relationship with ourselves. How this relationship with God make us feel different about ourselves, if it does. And of course, how it rules our relationship with others. So we will share with you some, it's very probably less than 1% of the research that is already happening in the world in regards to these religious features in our lives. It's fascinating because scientists are coming to a conclusion that is very close of everything that we already know in Spiritism. As Kardec says, we need it to validate it. We need validation. That's why we tell our partners, listen to me, just validate me. That's all that I need. No, but you're right. No, but tell me I am. It's good to know. Because as Jesus said once, sometimes we're so fragile that all that we need is validation. It's not that we are bad. We're ignorant, and for such reason we are fragile, and that's why we need one another. And science is telling us day in, day out that the master of all masters was right and is right. So let us keep our hopes up, because there are many good news. So many good news that when we talk about our relationship with God, when scientists ask, how come we think so much of God? There are great scientists amongst them. Andrew Newberg. He was at the University of Pennsylvania, and now he's at the University of Thomas Jefferson University in Pennsylvania. And he is certainly the leading scientist in regards to addressing this very question. And he has good collaboration with Spiritist doctors in Brazil, like Dr. Julio Paris. They've published research together. So, in your prayer list, pray for Dr. Andrew Newberg. He is really a pioneer in the field. And it's not easy to be a pioneer because there is still a lot of prejudice. So we would say, pray for them as well, so they can keep unveiling these things that maybe we know in Spiritism, but science still doesn't know. And things may change the way we even treat our patients in the future. So he wrote this amazing book, Principles, let us see the name, Neurotheology. Unbelievable. This is how science is approaching religion. It is adopting its very terms and mixing it up. When we say neuro, we're talking about the brain. Theology, about what we know regarding God. So he has written a book to help people who want to do research in this very field. And what is the field? Trying to understand why we think so much of God. Why is God always in our minds? Almost like that music. You're always in my mind. Hopefully God is always in our minds. We want to tell our babies right off the bat, even before they are born, remember of God. Remember you reincarnated here to serve God. Even if they don't seem to understand, but the Spirit knows. So we have to keep reminding them, always in our minds, always in our minds. But they ask why. Our genes set up to really make us think about God. So is God something we create biologically? Or the reverse? Are we an extracorporeal entity that is imprinting this idea in the brain, and the brain does react and expresses its activation when we think and feel about God. These questions can be answered in some ways, but not in every way. But Dr. Newberg is making sure we get to know of it. And one thing is for sure, by imaging, scanning our brains when we think of God, they've got to know which areas of the brain are being specially activated. Let's take a look. And this was published in Science, and then Newsweek many years ago dedicated the whole cover page and the center article to the very research that was done. How our brain is on God. So showing very different areas of the brain that are specially activated when we think of God, when you see a religious image, when you meditate, anything that is sacred, God-related. What is interesting amongst many things is when we use images, areas of the brain that are more primitive are specially activated. For us Spiritists, it's very validating of when we read the law of worship in the Spirit's book, third part of the Spirit's book. In the law of worship, Kardec asks, do we need to have images? Do we need to have anything external to worship God? What was the answer of the good spirits? No. Thank God they said no. No, you don't. But, of course, if you use, don't blame yourself. You're not committing any crime. But there will be a day in which we will not need any external thing for us to feel about God. Many people go to Spiritist centers or churches feeling, let's go think of God there, elsewhere. But bring your God home. Like Divaldo was saying, like the beautiful excerpt of Raul Teixeira's talk, the kingdom of God is in our hearts, as Jesus said. It's not elsewhere. And science is showing to us that this need to connect to the external input, to think of God, is expressed in more primitive areas of our brains, telling us that if we evolve, we will overcome this external need, and God's going to be internalized in such a way that the deeper we meditate about God, higher areas of the brain that only come with the advancement of humanity are being specially activated, such as areas in the frontal lobe. Beautiful. Dr. Newberg did that research, and so much research in that field that he has just published this book at the end of 2013, How God Changes Your Brain. Now this is science telling us how much our relationship with God is changing the way we feel. This is something we don't expect. When people in our lives say, you talk too much about God, you think too much about religious things, you're like, and say, give them this book and say, this body here is changed. Much better. Because science is telling us now that for whatever reason they can't explain fully, when we are spiritual, deeply religious, we're healthier, we live longer, though some people don't want to live too long. Like, oh please, 116, no way. But that's the destiny of humanity, to expand its lifespan, and we will live longer and longer. But we have better relationships. The more we cherish our connection with God. Science already proves it. Science already proves it. If you ask Dr. Newberg, are you religious? He says, no. That's great. Don't change him to become a spiritist, because he's friends with spiritists, and that's good enough. Because scientists need to be neutral. Some people approach me, Vanessa, why don't you do research in this field? Because people are not going to believe the results that I get. Because I believe in everything. And that changes the way I read the data. So I can't, unfortunately. I would love to, but I can't. Because to be scientist, you have to be neutral. Psychophysics already proved that depending on our belief as scientists, we change the data according to our belief. So it's very tricky to do research on something if you believe in the result or in one of the hypotheses that you build up. You have to be neutral. Dr. Newberg is neutral, and that's a plus for us. And he's identifying little by little that this God is really in us. He says, God is in us. He cannot answer the question whether the genes created this idea of God or there is an extracorporeal being. Science doesn't have instruments to answer those questions yet, but it will. But one thing we know, it's in our veins. God is in us. It's great. It's not elsewhere. So if tomorrow, by any chance, not tomorrow because we'll be here, but after tomorrow, I go back to snowy Virginia, and like, oh, I cry. It's like, oh no, I would love to stay in Miami and with the Spiritist family enjoy the sunlight. But I remember I have the sun inside of me. As Joana de Angelis said to Divaldo Franco, as an affirmation in the CD Health, I have the sun inside of me. And let it shine. Let us let it shine. Ups and downs in our lives. But there is always a day we find out everything passes. And everything shall pass in any way. As Chico Xavier found out when he was sick. You know, he was a human being after all. He had his moments, he cried. He was sad. He was oftentimes like not knowing. He had to ask the spirits. It was that day he asked Emmanuel, can I get like an idea, perspective about my health condition, because this is really hard. And Emmanuel said, you know, he couldn't answer. Dr. Bezerra came along, very kind. That being Dr. Bezerra was not allowed to bring greater relief until he turned again to Emmanuel and said, can you ask Mother Mary to please give me like a solution or an idea about what's going on? And then he came back with the answer. Tell Chico that everything shall pass. So he would never forget. He wrote it down and kept it in front of his bed so he would wake up every day and read it. This is the power of affirmations. Power of affirmations. If we keep affirming to ourselves something, we program our minds, our brains. Science tells us so. Spiritism explains us why. Because thoughts are life, as Emmanuel says. Thoughts are mental electromagnetic forces. If I think, I connect. If If I connect, I am in a network, and I will receive similar thoughts. If they are good, I'll feel better. If they're bad, I'll feel worse. So don't indulge, the Spirit say, into bad thoughts. You know those people who like, oh, today I want to be melancholic. Don't call me friends. They Facebook nowadays, right? Don't Facebook me today. I want to cherish my melancholy. Eating chocolate and crying. And why? I don't know. I just feel like it. No, don't do this. In the gospel according to Spiritism, we get to know we shouldn't go there. The spirits say, if you allow yourself to cherish this melancholy, this sadness, your will be weaker, and it's going to be much harder to get out of it. And we know why. Because of other spirits that we'll be attracting. So don't go there. What does Joana de Angelis say in the book Happy Life? Change your thoughts. And when Dyer, as if he were like friends with Joana and everybody else, probably they are in the spirit realm, he wrote this beautiful book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. Bringing the Tao of Lao Tzu, breaking down in beautiful understanding for us. Because according to Emmanuel, we know that these were missionaries sent to the earth to bring relief, not only to the Western world, but to the Eastern. Everywhere we go in the world, truth comes. And this is something that the Gospel according to Spiritism tells us in the very beginning. What we know in Spiritism is universal. It doesn't belong only to us. That's why science is little by little stepping in and telling us that if God changes our brain when we pray, we meditate, we visualize, it changes our physical body as well. So when the spirits say, do this visualization, it's going to change your health, rest assured, by changing thoughts, we will change our physiology and our health status will be changed as well. Side note, we can't forget we're millennial beings. So many thoughts we have been thinking of previous lives, they're still impacting on us to date. So be patient, and sow the seeds today for tomorrow. Not only health in this life. There was a person who came to me and said, Vanessa, but what do we do if somebody's almost like completely disabled physically? What is the hope they have to change their thoughts? Immortality. We cannot create this therapy for us for this life alone. The therapy we're talking about here is a therapy that we carry through many lives and beyond many lives in the physical body. Our immortal spiritual life. We want to conquer fullness, as Joana de Angelis says. Plenitude in Portuguese. We want to conquer our whole health. Not this health that one day we know the physical body has to go back to the soil of the earth. And with health, you don't die. We know what I mean, right? It must perish. Law of destruction. Law of destruction is a law of God. Law of transformation. Science told us so. Everything is transformed. Nothing is lost. And as such, we need to embrace this change. But when changes come, we don't like it. I want change. I think about change, and then change happens. Like, oh, that's so hard. Well, but you asked for it. So science can help us try to understand what we can do with the other religious part of us, the one that is going to rule our relationship with ourselves, so we know what to do next. When we get to know, for example, in books that are quite scientific and quite at the vanguard, like Evolution into Worlds, telling us that we are co-creator in two ways, either at a greater plane, when we're more evolved, or a lesser plane. As a co-creator in a greater plane, we will be glorious intelligences that take the divine energy, plasma, and convert into cosmic habitations in multiple expressions. Or, just like what Dr. Newberg showed to us, we can be co-creators of our own physiology. By thinking something, we can change our physiology. André Louis says, by being a co-creator of a lesser plane, we are building our physical bodies, our spiritual bodies, and thus changing our brain. Changing our brain because, as André Louis says in chapter 9 of Evolution into Worlds, our brains are the nests of our minds. So Spiritism tells us the story in its fullness. We are extracorporeal beings imprinting life in the physical body. Science will get there. So much so that science is already identifying that we evolve in such a way that we need extra neurons when we are presented to the new. When André Louis says in 1958 that our brains renew its neurons millions of times in the physical and extra-physical, it blew the minds of everyone, including Spiritists. It took many decades, and only in 2002, science was able to tell that old dogs do learn new tricks. If, and only if, they expose themselves to the new. So there is no such thing like, I'm getting old, I cannot learn anymore. Yes, you can, if you want to, and if you expose yourself to the new. That's what they did with these mice that were aging. They don't look aging because they don't have gray fur, but they were aging. And they showed that those who were in environments that were more exciting, with toys and treadmills, etc., they expressed newborn neurons in the brain. And that's very important because think about it. When Jesus says, when he comes to the earth and tells us, blessed are the afflicted, we have to learn to feel the blessing. How do we learn? He was an educator, and he still is, coming to tell us, hey, you can change the way you do things. Meaning you can learn to do new things. And science is telling us nowadays, yes, you can. Because your physical body has the capacity to support this new experience. Because without new neurons, I cannot hold on to the new knowledge, to the new experience. That's why we need new neurons, to accommodate that new knowledge inside of us, that new experience. So when Jesus says, forgive, but that's too hard, not for me. Reconcile, not for me. Science is gonna say, Jesus was right, because you can do it. And actually science saying, you better do it. You're gonna feel better, do better in life, and be healthier, and live longer in a healthier way. So let us take a look at how science approaches this relationship, this religious relationship we have with ourselves. Feeling about God will change the way we have compassion towards ourselves. What this scientist tells us, Kristen Neff, and you can see her talk at TED Talks, which is a short way for you to come across the idea, when she proves to us how powerful it is to be self-compassionate, to be kind to ourselves. Jesus said it all along. Love one another as you love yourself. So I need to love myself. But don't we criticize ourselves all the time? Where's compassion there? We need to learn to be compassionate to ourselves, to feel better, to be better. And in this book, Dr. Neff proves to us that we need to be kind to ourselves to be healthier, to have better relationships. Stop criticizing ourselves. One thing is to be truthful, another is to be smashing us, saying, "You're stupid." As she says, we often are harsher on ourselves than on the worst enemy we may have. We say things to ourselves we would probably never say to somebody whom we dislike. So how can we actually love ourselves so one day we'll love our neighbor? So self-compassion really becomes an imperative measure for us to live a better life. She's an evangelical scientist. She is a believer. Even though her group has been identifying that this word compassion that is so religious is not only in the domain of religion. Now it belongs to the therapy in science. So it's valid if you're a medical doctor to tell your patient, be kinder to yourself. Be more compassionate to yourself. They're not going to turn to you and say, "Who are you? Are you a priest?" As educators, we can tell our students too, don't be too anxious. Breathe in deeply, be kind to yourself. Give food to your physical body. How often we're so harsh on us that we starve our physical bodies. You ask, "Aren't you hungry? It's been 8 hours since you last ate." No, I'm not hungry. You are not, because your spirit, but your physical body certainly is hungry. There is like a mismatch. There is no attention, no compassion. The body is now part of us for the time being. We need to take care of and eat healthy foods. Because when we eat junk, there's no compassion towards ourselves. So you're not gonna drink Coca-Cola, not because you made a promise and for a year I'm not gonna do it. No, because you love yourself. That's why you're not gonna drink Coke. That's why you're not gonna eat fried food, because it's gonna destroy the circulatory system in your body. And if I drink alcohol, I will dehydrate the cells in the body. But Vanessa, it's just a glass of wine. You don't need a glass of alcohol to dehydrate a cell in the lab. You need a drop. When I want to dehydrate a cell to study under the microscope, a drop is enough. I don't need a whole glass of alcohol. I'm sorry, but that's science. It's not religion anymore. It's science telling us take care of yourself. Isn't that what religion does? Now science is stepping forward and saying, good job, religion. I may love you again, because you're telling to take care of one another. Good. What about the part of religiousness that rules our relationship with others? What is science telling us in regards to those features? So we selected main elements that can be really transformative. Something that can make our lives totally anew. And people look at us and say, man, you've changed. Great. Because when people look at us and they say, oh, you're the same person and I've known you for 30 years, now you go to the bedroom and cry. Because you want to be different. You want to renew yourself, not only in the next reincarnation, but in this lifetime. People may look at you like, man, that person's changed. What happened there? I have to keep myself up to date with the new understanding that I am acquiring. So let us see how science is approaching that feature in which our relationship with God is ruling our relationships with everybody else. Religion talks about forgiveness, talks about compassion, reconciliation, and these are hard things to do. One thing science is telling us is, it is good to be good. And you can watch by the TV Say, thanks to Daniel Santos, on March 27th, when Divaldo Franco and Steve Post will be in Washington, D.C. talking about the importance of doing good. Science now tells us it's a measure of health to do good. If you are charitable, you're healthier, happier than if you just think about yourself selfishly. So science is telling, Jesus was right. To do good to others is really good, not only to the people whom we're helping, but to us. Something we can read more in Dr. Post's book, The Hidden Gifts of Giving. But religion also tells us that it is important for us to be, okay, hold on, mystery. Where is it? It's there. Okay. Oh gosh, no, don't spoil it, don't. I know, we're almost there. There. Being altruistic. Being altruistic is something that science is telling us. What's happening? It's not changing here. Okay. It's telling us that our brains are differently activated when we feel that we have to help other people. So it's something that is beyond being abstract. It's real, it's tangible, it's in the physical body. When we feel compassionate, Dr. Dottie from Stanford, he proves to us that we are much better off when we are compassionate, kinder to people, than when we are not. So walking in the street and smiling at people is a good thing to do. Looking at people who are suffering and be willing to help them out is good for you too. As the Dalai Lama says, he helped science a great deal. He says, maybe people don't want to hear the word compassion, but when you say kind, be kind, so you're going to be healthier, it can become a medical prescription. Many people are suffering diseases because they don't open their hearts to be kinder to people. Beautiful study when they showed what happens in our brains when we feel the pain of somebody else. Science was expecting that that was something that wasn't going to be expressed in the brain. And when it did, they were surprised to show that when we feel the pain of others, we're activating areas of the brain that are connected to centers that are more primitive than we imagine. So it's probably something that has been there for a while in humanity. And now we're becoming aware. So when people say, I don't understand why Jesus has come only 2,000 years ago. Because that potential has always been with us, independent of the advancements of sciences, of human understanding, of even consciousness, of awareness in that regard. Finally, when scientists approach and tell us, be forgiving because that's healthier, it validates the statement Jesus gave, forgive 70 times 7, meaning indefinitely, you're not going to count, right? And they say, according to this scientist who is actually leading authority in the field, he says there is an approach that works very well, which is the REACH plan. Recall the hurt, empathize with the one who hurt you. Isn't that what Jesus taught us? Altruistically decide to forgive, commit publicly to, I cannot read, I cannot remember. You're reading, thank you. So, scientifically, we can tell when we forgive, we are wiser, we are healthier. When people do resolutions for the new year, it's always material, usually. Car, losing weight, da-da-da. Spiritual ones. I have a whole year to make amends with X, Y, Z people. But what are others going to think? I don't care. I care what I think. Because that's going to rule my life. What others think is their problem. A whole year to make amends. Here we have science telling us it's a good thing to be done. And when Jesus said, blessed are the peace-loving, for they shall inherit the earth. That's Jesus. We cannot be at peace on the earth. After the Second World War, scientists all around the world were asking, how can human beings be so cruel? There's nothing in nature so violent, so cruel. So Franz de Waal at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, he's actually from Netherlands, moved to the United States and started this pioneering field of understanding human violence. After decades of studying violence by observing primates, he realized for the first time something that it was groundbreaking, that we actually are capable of being peacemakers, being peace lovers. It is in our genes. How did that happen? So he wrote many books, one of them being this, Peacemaking Among Primates. If peace can happen in primates, why cannot happen in humans? Because we don't want to. Because if we do, it happens. As the Spirit said in the Spirit's book, selfishness and pride block our way. Reasoning can conquer those two. I don't know how long it's going to take us, but it can. So he observed, for example, that when those chimps they are male and female, by the way, that's why they are kissing in the mouth. And I say this not in a prejudice way. I just say because the studies they made were only in that route. So we need to write him an email saying we want to know more about this story. But just as they explained, the caption of this picture is about a male and female. They had a relationship and they had a fight. Yeah, they fight too. And curiously, after the fight, they approach one another and seal the relationship, the reconciliation, with a kiss. For those who are Brazilians, we have a song for this, right? Entre tapas e beijos. That's very primate. It's not human. It's primate. To be human is above it. Because Jesus has not come here to teach us to be angels. Emmanuel says in the book Ceifa de Luz, Jesus came to teach us so we can be real humans. Because to fight is primitive. To be humans is to be peace-loving. To be angels, I don't know. We don't have an account. None of the Spirit's book tell us about how to be an angel. They tell us about the moral code for humanity. So relax. If people say, I'm not an angel, yeah, I'm supposed to be human first. I'm supposed to leave my animal instincts and conquer my humanity. When Franz de Waal identified that in a family, because often we have squabbles in families, this is a family. The middle one is the mom. She's already a grandmother because she has, grandchildren here. This is one of her daughters, the other daughter. They have the grandkids here. These two daughters were fighting. And you know what Dr. Waal, Franz de Waal, observed? After they fought, the mother called them in and was lecturing them. You need to be friends. Of course, with other words. These are rhesus monkeys, so in their language, the grandmother was telling, be friends. Of course, this seems to be very easy, but this is a very complex research that was done. The bottom line is, it is possible to be at peace, because it comes from our animal experiences. But we need to conquer it with our consciousness. No wonder the Spirit said, where are the laws of God written in our conscience? There it is. In the spirit that animates that physical body. I know it's still spiritual principle, getting to the human level, but here we are today. So when I look at myself in the mirror and I say, I cannot change, I cannot be at peace, I cannot make amends, I cannot reconcile, think again. It is in our nature. We just need to allow it to blossom. We just need to allow it to blossom. The same question came to Bartholomew, much like us. I particularly love that passage of the book Boa Nova, soon to come in English. It's already in English, under revision. The book Boa Nova by the Spirit Humberto de Campos tells us the very story that humanity is feeling, the feelings of humanity nowadays. We know we need to be ethical, to be aligned, but something inside of us doesn't allow. I want to be the best I can be. When I look at Divaldo Franco, Raul Teixeira, Chico Xavier, I'm like, oh, that's our future. But sometimes we don't see how. I will bridge my today to that tomorrow. Bartholomew was feeling the same, so he turned to Jesus. He said, Master, I loved your message. These good news are very fulfilling. But when I go back to my day-to-day life, it's hard. My father, he shouts at me. He doesn't like me. My mother departed. She's deceased. I don't have her love any longer. She was the only one who loved me. My brothers don't understand me. My co-workers, they look at me as if I am a crazy man. How can I match your teachings with this life of mine? And Jesus turns in a very scientifically proven way and says, Bartholomew, first he smiles because he was a smiling master. He smiles to Bartholomew and says, Bartholomew, have you heard of good news that don't bring joy? The follower of the good news has a trademark, always feeling joy, hope, and courage. So Bartholomew, take heart. In Portuguese, bom ânimo. Take heart, Bartholomew, because everything shall pass. And science says it is true. So dear friends, let us take heart, because science and religion are coming to our rescue. Thank you very much.